All right, welcome back to our Wednesday community Zoom call. Tonight's topic is going to be on the hierarchy of needs. If you've been with me for a while, I've talked about this a whole lot in individual check-ins, in community talks, such as this one. If you ever watch my IG live calls with Caleb, who's my current coach, that's also something we've talked about on there as well. So really it boils down to four different things on every given week, whether it's your best week ever or your worst week ever. There's four needs that we want to, come back and focus on and try to make sure that we're executing at least, one or two things from this list that we can. So these are kind of umbrella options or aspects of our lifestyle. But so the number one thing that we always want to keep in check, and this is something that honestly, most Americans are terrible about doing. And honestly, when Nicole and I went over to Europe for the first time this summer, I saw firsthand the difference between how Americans live versus how they live over there in Europe. And this top thing that we want to focus on always is going to be our sleep quality, getting enough hours of quality sleep, as well as stress management. I put those two things at the top because they go hand in hand. If you're undersleeping and you're living a high stress lifestyle, whether it be work or, relationship issues or whatever the case is, back in 2020, obviously COVID was an external stress that we all had to deal with. Politics are always a stressful thing. So, money is always one of, everybody's biggest stress in general for the most part. So there's all of these different stressors, and then undersleeping on top of that only compounds all of that. We always talk about compounding errors. We don't want to make, if we're making one error, we don't want to make, two or three others that are just going to exacerbate it. So managing that sleep quality, managing your stress management as well are two massive things. Something that I've talked about here a lot more this past year is, controlling your guys' cortisol. So this is something I've got to take into account as well as a bodybuilder. Putting myself through a lot of stress. And I've got to make sure, and I don't think Nicole always likes it, but, at nighttime, I got to be in bed by a certain time and get quality sleep so I can get up at, 5:30 or 6 in the morning to get to the gym. I always tell you guys, do not sacrifice your sleep so that you can go get a workout in. Now, obviously, if you had plenty of sleep and you're just laying in bed and missing workout because you're just being lazy, that's totally different. This is if you had to cut into your 8 hours of sleep just to get to the gym, that's not a good trade-off. Regardless who you are, regardless what your goals are. A lot of people, they have that hardcore mindset that I just want to do everything I can to, get this weight off me or whatever the case is. And ultimately, if you're sacrificing that sleep, you're just digging yourself a bigger hole. And, once you can manage that stress, whether it be mental stress or physical stress, your body's going to respond beautifully with it. So that's it. Those are two, the top things that I always want to make sure that we're always focusing on. So, if your nutrition cannot be on point, if you can't get all your workouts in that week, manage those two things. Just make sure that your routine at bedtime is always staying consistent. De-stressing and checking out from the world is a good thing at some point at nighttime. If you're constantly on your phone, especially if you're working late at night until 9 or 10 o'clock, there might be nights where that has to happen. And that's a, true necessity for your job or for whatever it is that you're dealing with. But if you have control, which most nights I feel like most people do have that control, is to not allow yourself to do that. You got to have those boundaries. I think COVID was a big turning point in people recognizing their work-life boundaries that they, it's easy. A lot of the things cross over, especially when you're working from home. And I know we have a lot of people here in TLF that also work from home, and you got to have those boundaries set and those time schedules kind of blocked off so that they don't bleed into one another. So I'll go ahead and pause really quick. Does anybody have anything they want to add, in terms of, your stress management, or, does that get out of control for you? How do you feel when you're high stressed and then you're sleeping poorly? Anything you guys feel like sharing about this topic? I know Krista, not to call you out, Chris, and this is obviously not a bad thing towards you at all. You have a newborn. I always like to use you as an example here because you're a teacher, which is a high stress job. It's unforgiving sometimes. It doesn't really allow for a lot of flexibility with it, even though we're forced to be flexible day in and day out. But so you got a stressful job. On top of that, you have a newborn at home. And, I know a couple of weeks ago, you've been stressed about trying to get your workouts in and just do everything that you're trying to do, take care of the home, get the kids ready to go to school and vice versa, going to bed, you getting yourself ready to go to the gym and things of that nature, or you not going to the gym, but get to work and trying to squeeze in those workouts, and since you've had your baby and getting back into it, I've talked to you a lot about the hierarchy of needs is don't add the stress onto your plate of forcing a workout in if that's making you have to cut out time with either your family or take away time from your sleep. And that's a huge thing. And I think especially for mothers in particular, you're very selfless. You give and you give and you give, but sometimes you're not stopping to give yourself the break that you need or the time that you need for whatever it looks like. It could be going to get your nails done, but it could just be going to the gym. It could just be literally sitting on the couch and just binge watching something every so often, just to give yourself that time to do whatever the hell it is that sounds good to you. And that's going to help you drop that stress down as well. So it's important that you guys are focusing on this, all of you.
I was just thinking about that when I saw that this is hierarchy needs. I was thinking it's such a good reminder for every parent and everyone working a job where they're putting in time outside of work hours, which is nearly everyone these days with, work from home. And it's just, you almost need you almost need someone to say, this is okay. This is what you need to focus on right now in this season of life.
Yeah. And Krista, you're doing it literally right now. You're busy being a mom, but you're still making time just to listen in on this. Even if you're busy doing something else, you're hearing it in the background at least and picking up on it. And so that's, again, you might not be able to get to the gym right now and get that knocked out. You will. That time will open up, sooner than later. But you're taking advantage of the things you can control right now and not letting it stress you out that you can't do the other things right now. And that's huge. And every step of the way,
like a form of mental self-care almost of
100%. And physically, you've made amazing progress the past 4 or 5 months since giving birth. It's been, incredible to see. So that's been wonderful. And that's, again, without even adding in the workout. So, once that opens back up for you, then everything's gonna be amplified and you're going to feel, great about that as well. But again, it's about just controlling what you can control. And that usually tends to keep us, less stressed when we're just focusing on what's within our actual reach. And that's where, really most people, they feel much more, anxiety and stress is when they're trying to control the things that they have no control over, no handle on. And so reeling it back in and just focusing on those few things. And again, this is a day-to-day thing, focusing on these hierarchy of needs. One day you might be able to crush all 4 things. The next day you might not be able to. So we can kind of move on from this, but again, stop me if I need to pause and let you guys share anything on this. Chris, thank you for sharing. So number one is always going to be our sleep and stress management. And one more thing I'll say with that, and I've said this on different ones, talking about sleep, but putting your phone up at a certain time and not being so attached to that especially late at night going to bed, or watching stressful things. Something that Nicole and I always do is we tend to either watch stand-up comedians, because that's going to put us in the right mindset. We've been watching this one show for the past 3 or 4 months called Good Mythical Morning, and they compare different junk foods and stuff of that nature that we all kind of grew up on. And that's just a nice stress relieving show to watch, and it's mindless. We're not sitting here in a super stressed state. For instance, like on Sunday nights watching Game of Thrones or whatever the new one is, House of Dragons. It's stressful going to bed right after that. So, making sure that we're flipping it over to something that's going to be calming and de-stressing, so we're not going to bed with this high adrenaline from just watching an intense show. So that's definitely a big key as well. And again, just finding your good bedtime routine. So we'll go on to the next one. So the next one is the one that is also obviously extremely important. This is going to be your nutrition. So, workouts are really something that I'd rather you drop a workout and not go to the gym if that means you're making time for that sleep and you're making time to get your meals prepped, to go to the grocery store, whatever it is that you got to do so you can set your week up for success. I'd rather you only get three workouts that week, but have your meals conquered versus, skipping the grocery store or, halfway doing your meal prep and then not coming into the week prepared because you want to get that workout in. Workouts are great stress relievers. And we want to do that because we all feel like that's what's breaking down this body fat and helping us lose it or helping us build this muscle. But ultimately, your body, your overall health is going to be made much more in the kitchen than it is anywhere else, and with those choices. And also that's going to feed into your stress, or it's going to help you minimize your stress. If you're somebody who, which we're all here trying to strive, towards working towards our goals, whether it be, gaining muscle mass or losing body fat, and you're already kind of stressed about that. And that's why you're here, is because you want to make some of those changes. So then going into the work week unprepared without your food either at home or even prepped in general is only going to make you much more stressed. You might enjoy Monday not being on your plan because you weren't prepped, but then you're going to see the scale on Tuesday. You're going to feel absolutely terrible because you ate out for 3 meals on Monday because you came into the week unprepared. And now your stress is much more elevated. And now you're scared to do check-ins on Thursday because you didn't come the week prepared, and that was on you. So it just comes down to making sure those meals. So when I talk about nutrition, it's making sure your food is there at home and ready to go. Your food is prepped and ready to go for the week, whatever that looks like for you. We've done a whole Zoom on particularly just how to meal prep and what works for everybody. So again, just making sure that stuff is in check is always huge. Coming back to the stress side of things, but and the nutrition things, because a lot of these things are overlapping. Whenever I tell a client to take a week off from the gym, like literally just don't go to the gym, just go on a daily walk and keep that stress low, that physical stress low, conquer your meals. I might even give you more carbs during that week, just to kind of feed you up and allow your body to de-stress a little bit. And you're going to be surprised when you see the weight go down. And usually the first time I say that is somebody's horrified because they're like, eat more, train less, actually train zero, just focus on sleep. Yeah, I'm going to gain a lot of weight this week. No, that's not usually what happens, especially when you've been consistently going to the gym. Sometimes your body just needs that little bit of a break. And again, just showing that if your nutrition's on point, your sleep's on point, your body's going to respond much more beautifully than if you're sacrificing all that stuff just to go get a super intense workout in. So finding that balance with it. Number 3 on here, actually, I'll pause really quick. Anybody want to add anything to anything that I just said with all that? Nutrition, sleep, how they interact with one another.
To be honest, Mark.
Do what? Sorry. Sully?
I was going to say it's Sully. Yeah. No, when you had me take that deload week that one time after I was been on a calorie deficit for every more of 6 to 8 months since before I got on with you.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost 3 pounds in that week just because of the fact that we was able to de-stress for a little bit and able to figure out. So I'm a living embodiment on that option right there of
that's very true.
How that worked.
Well, and on top of that, I remember because at the same time, that same week, you ended up telling me afterwards how perfect the timing was with it, because you had all these projects due at work, and before you came to me, you were your old coach had you doing like an hour worth of cardio every day on top of your training, and the scale still wasn't budging. You were in a calorie deficit and everything else. So then, if you would have continued having to do that plus get all that work project done, it would have just, your stress was just going to go up and up. And you're like, wow, I'm executing my diet. I'm in this deficit. I'm getting my cardio and I'm getting my training in, and I'm stressing over, not getting enough sleep because I'm focused on getting this project done. And boom, my weight went up this week and I executed everything perfectly. So sometimes there's a good thing to be able to recognize, when do you just need to take a break, and, recognizing that it's okay to not go to the gym this week. That was a huge eye opener for myself. I used to train 6 or 7 days a week, partly because I loved it, partly because I was horrified of being small. And that was kind of my reason to get to the gym. But then once I actually forced myself to take, 3 or 4 rest days each week, my body responded beautifully. I didn't have to get to the gym 7 days a week to train intensely to be able to maintain my muscle or maintain my strength. And on top of that, my joints felt better. I was sleeping better. Everything was improved. And I had more time for just better balance, especially as we get closer to having a family and things of that nature, running business and working. If I was still in that same mindset of going to the gym every single day because I have to for 2 hours a day on top of doing everything else, I think Nicole would kill me, number one. And 2, my health would be awful. So just finding that healthy balance with that stuff. Thanks for sharing that, Sully, because you're right. You're an embodiment of that exact thing. And I think a lot of people here have, at one point or another, we've taken a deload week. We've added food in. you know, not necessarily the same exact thing, but Lauren, you're a good example of that as well. Is, you know, reverse dieting with you, giving you more food is not a bad thing, and it gives you more freedom over the course of time, and your body hasn't changed negatively because of the food that we were eating with you. So yeah, that's all huge stuff. Sully, thanks for sharing that. Anybody else got anything to share about that before I move on? All righty. All right. So hierarchy of needs, we've gone through the first two: sleep and stress management. Nutrition comes next. Also, I forgot to mention water with that. I include water in everything. That should be everybody's staple. No matter what's going on, you know, especially if you're on vacation, getting that water intake in. I put that up there with nutrition, with sleep and stress, because water is the easiest thing. And if you're going to tell me that it's hard to get that water in, you live in America with clean drinking water everywhere that you go all the time. So there's no excuse to not get that water in. And if you're saying that you can't get the water in, okay, James got Mountain Dew there. Hopefully that's diet, but regardless, I'm sure you've also drank a decent amount of water today. Or hopefully so. If you haven't, don't tell me here. Tell me in your check-in day that you drink no water this week. But so again, though, it's just a matter of that should be a staple. I forget to even mention that sometimes because it should be just automatic. It's going to help with everything in your body and your energy, your mental cognition. Everything is going to benefit from being properly hydrated. And if your goal is to lose body weight, body fat, and you're not drinking enough water, you're handcuffing yourself. You know, it's going to aid in digestion. It's going to keep you less bloated, and it's going to help everything moving, you know, well. It's going to help you go to the bathroom and everything else. So making sure that is on there. We got a good turnout tonight, friends. We got like 11 people on this, plus myself. It's good. I love it. Happy to see you guys. All right. So stress, sleep management, nutrition, and water. Now we're on to exercise. So again, I put exercise at number 3, not number 1 or number 2. Obviously, it is still important that we're exercising. We want to go move our bodies. You know, one of the most undervalued forms of movement, forms of exercise that, you know, again, when I tell people to do this, when I go do this myself, it seems minimal, but going on a walk, just getting your steps in, that, you know, that neat, that total daily expenditure, you know, just getting your steps in is huge. Especially with people working more from home or working, you know, office jobs and sitting a whole lot. I know, like during the summer times, it's very, very hard for me to get my steps in because I'm sitting here in my office at my desk a whole lot more than I am when I'm teaching PE. So I got to actively make sure I get up and walk boss a couple times a day. You know, if I'm going to hop on a phone call with somebody, I'm trying to go on a walk at that time just so I can get those steps in and build that into my day. But, you know, walking is something that, if you've got bad knees, I know my mom's on here right now. She's had knee surgery. You know, getting her moving is a huge thing until that knee gets fully healed. There you go. But then on top of that, obviously getting to the gym. And so this is again where it's like, you've got to go into the week prepared, just like you are nutrition wise, looking at what your schedule looks like. You know, most weeks are probably going to be fairly similar for everybody here. Mondays look like this, Tuesdays look like this. So hopefully you can get into a good routine about when your workout days are going to be. But ultimately, you know, being flexible is obviously a key with that. You know, for me, for myself, some weeks I got to do a lot of morning workouts. Some weeks I'm doing afternoon workouts. It really just depends on the week. It all varies for me, but I know a lot of you guys have a decent routine. But again, regardless of the routine, you got to look at that schedule on Sunday or whatever your day off is heading into the next few days of work, and look at when can I actually get to the gym and make this happen. That's not going to cut into my sleep. That's not cutting into, you know, quality family time that I need to get in. That's not cutting into my meal prep time and things of that nature. And that might boil down to just 2 days a week. And again, that's why when we're talking about the hierarchy of needs, it's at number 3. Because if you only get in there twice a week, I'd much rather you conquer the other few things. So I don't need to hammer this exact one home. Just understand where it falls at in your list of priorities. Anybody need to comment on that? Anybody have any thoughts about that exact thing? Have you ever sacrificed your sleep just to go get those workouts in? You know, how did you feel with those workouts? I know for myself, that's always when I've always gotten injured, or just felt absolutely terrible the rest of the day, is when I slept for 5 hours and I went and forced a workout just because I felt like I had to go do it. Anybody have any experiences of that nature?
Yeah, I feel like very early on, I was set to always get my workouts in, and I was losing out of sleep, and I was still seeing results, but I was just always stressed. So I kind of was like, I think my nutrition and my sleep are important, and I struggle with sleep, but I was always on point with nutrition. And so now that I'm getting more sleep and I'm eating more healthy, I'm like less stressed now. And so the weight loss is just becoming more easier. And
Yeah.
and it's like easier for me to like plan out my days now to be like, okay, this is what I can get done. This is what I can control. I'm still able to get my workouts in for the most part, but like if I'm not, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is one of the things I'm striving to help everybody here kind of get to is that exact thing. That's exactly the balance that we're talking about is knowing what your lifestyle looks like, knowing what you're actually able to conquer while not letting it take away from every other aspect of your life. And it keeps your stress down low, and then allows you to feel just better overall. Than if you were sacrificing that sleep and that nutrition just to go get those workouts in. Again, if we're trying to change our body, it's like these workouts are only doing so much, where the other two things are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And the little bit of exercise you're going to add on to that, it's just going to amplify it. Really, again, walking is always fantastic, but in terms of going to the gym, I always recommend, if you can go get 3 solid 60-minute workouts in a week, maybe not even 60 minutes, you're still going to be able to see a lot of results. We want to make sure we're training intensely. Just going in there and just moving weight for 60 minutes might not be the ticket to what we want to do. Especially if we want to, gain muscle and really amplify and maximize our time in the gym. But yeah, no, Sierra, that's a great, thank you for sharing, because that's very, very true. And you work overnights. So that makes it even harder as a nurse, because you're a nurse, correct, Sierra?
Oh no,
I
I think you're talking about the other Sierra. I'm Lynn Sierra. So I work a desk job, but no, it's just mostly I handle a lot of the house stuff since Lynn does work a lot. So I'm just trying to balance everything and make sure the household is staying okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, similar to what Chris mentioned as well, making sure her house is always in check. So again, managing all that stuff and making sure that you're not overloading your plate with too much. So I'm happy you made that realization, because again, like I shared a post on you today, how you've been crushing it here lately. And that comes back to you finding that healthy balance and not being overly stressed about doing the wrong things, and instead of focusing on the right things. So good job with that, Sierra. Anybody else have anything to share on that sacrifice, maybe struggle that you went through? I think that we've all kind of went through that. I know that was me. A lot of times when people come to me and they fill out their questionnaire, we have a consult call, or they just do their initial reach out about wanting to work with me. Their first comments are always generally about the workout side of things, or like, I've been doing X amount of cardio, or here's my plan with my workouts and stuff like that. And that's all fantastic, and I obviously want to talk about that. We want to optimize all that stuff, but I want to know the other things. I want to know your sleep, your sleep routines. I want to know how quality that sleep is. I want to know your nutrition habits. What does it look like on a bad day for you? What does it look like on a good day for you? That's one of the things we all should be trying to improve here is, one, minimizing the bad days, but also lessening the damage on those bad days. Just because your breakfast was off, just because you slept poorly, doesn't mean you need to throw away the whole day. And because what's going to happen is, if you undersleep like that, you're going to start having cravings for other things. You're going to be wanting more caffeine. You're going to be wanting more sugar. You're going to be wanting more sweet and salty foods. So then you just underslept, and now you're stressed because whatever the case is, or maybe even go to the gym and now you just stress your body even more. And now you're having all these cravings because you underslept, and that cortisol is through the roof. And so then you reach for that stuff. So understand how just that sleep being off then was a domino effect about how everything else can go that day. So it's important to recognize that. So if I sleep poorly, I got to know that I got to crutch everything else that day, not necessarily my workouts, but managing my stress and how much it is that I'm actually trying to get done that day, that I'm going to be able to do in a quality way, making sure that my water's on point, my supplements on point, my nutrition's on point. And then I might not make a lot of progress that day, but it's a whole lot better than if I just threw away the whole day because one thing was off. So it's about minimizing those bad days, minimizing how bad those bad days actually are. and trying to find that happy medium. That's why I always say, you know, if your best day today, the best you can do is 50%, then you should be doing 50%. You shouldn't do 25%. You shouldn't do 0% because all you could do was half of the right things. Do half the right things, because that's going to end up building up to your overall lifestyle. That's going to add up in the course of your entire year. There's so many different things that are going to throw us all throughout the week, out the month, out the year, that if you're constantly throwing away days just because one thing was off, it's just, it doesn't make sense when it comes down to it. If you look at the math of it, it makes no sense. It's like somebody saying, oh, I don't want to start trying to lose weight in September, October, because we've got Thanksgiving coming up, a month and a half later. And then we have Christmas coming up after that. Okay. So if we look at that, and I always talk about this as well, is if you look at Thanksgiving meals and you look at Christmas meals and you look at all the other little celebrations you might be doing in between with birthdays or, friend stuff and stuff like that, between November 1st and December 31st, whatever the last day would be in the year, you've got about 61 days in there. Let's just say on the high end, you're going to have about 20 different cheat meals in that amount of time when it comes to all the different holiday meals. So just 20 bad meals over the course of about 60 days. Well, you're going to eat about 3 or 4 meals a day. So let's just say you eat 3 meals a day. What is that? 60 times 3, that's 180 meals. So somebody's going to say that, hey, I'm not going to start a diet here in October because during that 60-day window in November, December, 20 out of 180 meals are going to be off. When you actually look at the math of it, that makes 0 sense. 20 meals shouldn't make you throw away the other 160 meals. And if you do, that's why you're coming into New Year's 20 pounds heavier than what you were at the end of the summer, because you just said, screw it, I'll figure it all out on January 1st. And maybe doing that 1 year might not be that big of a deal. But when you do it for a whole decade, that's how we step on the scale one day. We're like, how the hell did we get here? That's usually how we did it. We kept throwing away days that we didn't need to throw away. So lastly, we started with sleep and stress management, nutrition and water, exercise, and lastly, it's going to be supplementation. Supplements. There's a lot of you here that I recommend supplements to. If you have digestive issues, obviously that's going to be one thing we want to focus with. If you've been with me for a while, James and Lauren, you've been with me for a while. Chris, you've been with me for a while. I've never been huge on supplements. I don't want to throw more things at you. I don't want to add more things onto it. Usually if I'm recommending something, it's just for general overall health, or there's maybe a true need for it. Again, I just mentioned, gut health. If we see that is off, we want to address that stuff, because if you're not digesting foods properly, you're not absorbing it properly, then even if you're eating the healthiest things in the world, if you can't absorb the nutrients, then you're not really getting the benefit of a lot of it. It's a lot better than eating, bullshit would be, but still, we want to make sure those things are in check. But so again, I put this at 4th, because if you're not sleeping well, if you're not managing your stress, you're not eating quality foods, you're not exercising, the supplements are going to do absolutely nothing. That's the American mindset of what's the quick fix, what's the magic pill that's going to get me there. And yeah, some of those things are going to help and they're going to aid in those things, but you still got to put in the other work. And if you're just relying on pills or on medications, whatever the case, to do all the heavy lifting for you, you're going to be very, very upset, and it's not going to be a good time for you. And ultimately, you're going to end up having to do the hard work, whether it be now or later. So it's nailing those first 3 things down, and then supplements are always easy to add into it as well. Just so you guys know, we got about 10 more minutes on here before it kicks us off. But yeah, so supplements are 4th on that list. Not that they're not important, but the other 3 things need to take precedent over that. And so then, the next thing I kind of want to touch on, and I'll pause for a second, let anybody share. If you guys have anything to say, I'll take a drink anyway. I don't think anybody here prioritizes the supplements over any of the other 3 things that I talked about. So that's good. If anything, some people, they don't want to take any supplements, which I also understand and respect that as well. Why that is. I will say one other thing about supplements is just understanding that even if you're eating super organic, the healthiest foods that you could possibly eat, you're going to Sprouts, you're going wherever it is that you can get the healthiest food with the best nutrients in it. Just understand that for the most part, due to farming practices over the past 50 years and how now everything is mass produced, everything is how fast can we grow it? How fast can we prep it and get it sold? The nutrients in the soil nowadays, even if the plants are growing and things like that, it doesn't have the same nutrient content as what it did 50 years ago and what it did 100 years ago. It just doesn't. So I've seen stats on it. I'm not going to throw anything out because I don't know well enough the stats of some of the stuff, but just, looking at an orange now versus an orange 50 years ago and the amount of nutrients that it's lacking versus what it had 50 years ago. So one of the things I'm mentioning with this, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because supplementation will help you fill in those missing gaps. And you can only eat so much food in the day to get all your micronutrients in. And if they're on the lower side because of the way they were farmed or because of how they were grown or whatever the case is, now you're missing some of those nutrients. So then getting quality vitamins in, that's why I've switched over to a lot of new ethics recommendations for things, just because that's a company that I know they test everything very, very well, which is rare to do here in America anyway. It's the coach's supplement company, because what they provide is helping people feel better. I mean, I take 3, 4, 5, or 6 of the different supplements myself, in terms of the protein powder, whatever the case is that I'm taking, because I have a high trust for it, but I also know that I'm lacking some of these nutrients out of just our normal food that we eat, even if you're making the best choices. But so this all kind of comes down to all the hierarchy of needs here. What we want to do though, is we want to make these things our staples. And we've talked about this stuff before. If you've been with me for a while, I always talk about, you got to have your daily staples in. Meaning every day I'm gonna execute certain things. I think last week, the last time we were on here, I showed you guys like my to-do list app. I always mention that as well. I've shared that many different times, but anything I got to get done goes on that to-do list. Some things are automatic now, tracking my food in MyFitnessPal, making sure my meals are prepped, but even something as simple as meal prepping that I've done, I haven't missed a day or missed a week on it for over a decade at this point, because it sits at that top priority for myself. But even that, something that I have not missed, stays on my to-do list. It's on there. So I see it on Saturday. I know that, hey, I got to cook out my rice right now. I got to cook out my chicken before I go, toss it in the pressure cooker before I go train clients in the morning on Saturdays or Sundays, whatever the case is. I have on my to-do list, organize supplements, and it's recurring every Sunday. It pops up there, organize these, so I'm ready to go for the week. Figure out what you got going on and plan out my workout schedule that week. It's all these things that are automatic, but at the same time, I have reminders set up for, just because life gets busy, as it does for all of us. And you've got to have these things prioritized. And if you're forgetting, I'm very, very forgetful. If I don't put something on my to-do list, I'm probably going to forget it. So I make sure anything that I need to hear, anything I need to do and attend to, it goes on that. But so coming back to those staples though, I mentioned water intake earlier. That to me is a staple. That's not something I even need at this point on my to-do list. I'm just drinking a certain amount of water. At work right now, generally what I do is, I wake up, I have 4 glasses of water. They're about 8 to 10 ounces each. So I knock out 40 ounces before I even start my day. I go to the kitchen, knock out 2 glasses. I might pour a glass of coffee right after that. And then, I'll chug down 2 more glasses of water and boom, I'm good to go for the day. And then I've got this right here. This is 60 ounces. Important to know how much is in your water jugs that you're carrying around. I always finish out one. If I go to the gym, I'm finishing one whole 60-ounce thing at the gym. So if I do 4 glasses before I do this thing at the gym, I'm at 100 ounces before 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I'm peeing a lot. Luckily, I got a bathroom in my gym at school, but I'm flushing that down. And then also I make sure I salt my meals, whether it be with sea salt or Himalayan pink salt, or even just iodized salt, just because you're going to be depleting your sodium stores if you're just flushing through that much water. What's up, Lauren and James' son? I don't know your name, but what's up, dude? Just left.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? You learning some stuff?
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Love to hear that. You got a water jug?
You want a water jug?
Yes.
Good.
Good.
You're on it. You're on it. But yeah. So then again, another staple of mine, though, is that, I'll finish one of these at my workout, and then I'll finish one of those by noon. I'll go fill it up at lunchtime, and I'll finish another one by the time I leave work, especially during prep. Now, right now, it might be a little bit less than that. But again, water intake, I know, is going to be a huge, huge staple for me. Another staple is obviously getting my quality sleep and making sure my nightly routine, for the most part, stays somewhat intact, so that I'm, trying to hopefully fall asleep between the 10 and 10:30 time. That way I can get at least 7, if not 8 hours of sleep every night. So you've got to come up with your own staples that really work for you. Another thing in terms of staples is having certain foods on hand, not just the foods that you're prepped and that's on your diet plan, but other go-to things. I always recommend having, I have an abundance of protein powder. I have an abundance of egg whites, because if I'm short on protein that day, if I run out of chicken, I forgot to meal prep, or I forgot to thaw it, or whatever the case is, I got to have a go-to protein source so I can hit those numbers for that day. So having certain go-to foods on hand is very important. You know, I also keep rice cakes on hand at all time, because it's a very easy, simple, quick 10 grams of carbs, 12 grams of carbs per rice cake. And it's tasty. When I was a kid, I didn't think so. I was like, Grandma, why you give me a damn rice cake? I want something tasty. Now, Nicole and I eat rice cakes with a little bit of almond butter every night, and it's the best treat in the world, and it's low impact. I'm not getting that many calories out of it, but it's giving me that little bit of a treat as well, and it's helped me hit my macros. And I plan that into my macros. So now that I'm reverse dieting, I figure out, what do I want to make my last meal before I go to bed? Well, most of us Americans, we're used to something somewhat tasty at nighttime. That's what we're all kind of accustomed to, at least maybe me and my parents' home. My dad still, and he might be even listening on here still, even though he's working with me, he still has got to have his snacks at night. So we just make sure that those fit into what he's trying to do. But I'm the same way in that same sense. You know, I might make tastier, healthier choices, but that's still a staple of mine. So I want to make sure that I work with that and not necessarily against it. But again, so having rice cakes on hand for the carb source, you know, I was making an abundance of rice just because rice is cheap and expensive. So if I end up tossing some out, it was like $1, or it was like 10 cents of rice, since I'm getting 20, 25 pounds at a time. So having that stuff on hand is always key. You know, I always keep pasta or whatever the other go-tos. That way, hey, I'm tired of rice. I don't want rice tonight. I'm going to make a little bit of pasta and have a similar meal. The macros are going to be the same on it. It's just a different source of carbs that I'm having. And then in terms of fat, I always keep coconut oil, peanut butter on hand as well. Those are not the same thing. Coconut oil and peanut butter and olive oil. And so that way I have a clean, just straight up fat source. Peanut butter is going to have some carbs in it. So, you know, especially if you're on a lower carb diet, that might be a little bit harder to fit in. So coconut oil is a great fat option. You know, extra virgin olive oil is always good as well. But we're kind of, you know, now I'm just mentioning different staples with it, but you've got to find your own staples. You know, you should be finding macro friendly snacks as well. You know, I always keep complete cookies in our pantry. The Lenny and Larry's. If you've never had them before, they're pretty tasty. They are higher carb, but regardless, if your carbs are fairly high anyway, or at least moderately, you can definitely fit that in pretty easily. You know, I always keep eggs on hand as well. Again, fairly inexpensive. Now they are kind of expensive. Same thing with egg whites, but keeping those things on hand. So I have those to fall back on if I need to get something in. Or maybe I'm going to go out to dinner on Saturday night, and I want to keep leaner options on hand, like those egg whites, like that chicken, like that protein powder, so that I have plenty of room in my fat and my carbs to eat whatever it is that I'm eating out that night on Saturday night. But anyway, friends, I think I got like 20 seconds left. I appreciate you guys all being here. I appreciate you guys sharing and all your consistency just with being on the calls and check-ins. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at check-in day and next week on the Zoom call.
Cool. Thanks, Marcus.
See you, friends.